Hey guys, today I'm doing a video because I think it just needs to be spoken about. I think I need to speak it. It'll probably be a positive way to talk about these issues and to get emotions that, one may feel, out of one system, but in a productive fashion, maybe in a way that we can relate with other human beings that are feeling the same way. The video is provoked by two incidents that go together with a larger issue of morality. The issue really is morality. It is not politics. I'm going to make that known in the video. It's morality. Basic human decent morality. Today we had, or a few days ago, I think it was today or yesterday, we had the resignation of Justin Trudeau as the Canadian Prime Minister. Now, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm a Puerto Rican national, meaning I believe myself a patriot of Puerto Rico. But as politics stands at the moment, Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. It's colonized, it's been taken over by the United States, and therefore the sovereignty of the United States exists over the island of Puerto Rico. And then that, by 1917, we're all U.S. citizens. So I don't have an axe to grind, or I don't have a dog in this, or a horse in this race, or a bone to pick. Let's put it that way. I think in the United States the refrain, in my apologies, I'm from Puerto Rico, so we're not really experts on the refrains of the United States, but I think the refrain is we don't have a horse in this race. So what happens in Canada on a political level really doesn't pertain to us, and that's an internal affair of Canada, and it should be respected as such. But we're living in times where, and here's the crux of the issue, where we seem to be enveloped politically at the international level by evil. The only way I can explain it is absolute evil. The concept of evil, cruelty, selfishness, capriciousness, avarice, thievery, nepotism, the selling of influence, oligarchy, the wrong function of the rule of law or the lack of any rule of law. No fair play in politics, no fair play in government, no fair play in society. But more importantly and more insidiously, the celebration of this, the celebration of these values of cruelty, savagery, nepotism, selling of influence, meaning government by the rich, government by backdoor deals, openly celebrated by the regular common people that have nothing to win as a result of this. Beyond the fact that it's idiotic to support politicians or political leaders that, when the time comes, will sit in meetings with other rich men to decide how to divvy up the resources, the tax resources of the people, in ways that benefit them and not benefit the normal people. So it's idiotic to support. So if you're somebody that doesn't belong to a very rich class, you don't win anything when the petroleum industry leaders sit down with Donald Trump and say, let's divvy up these oil fields and we'll make a killing. You, fulano de tal, who voted Republican, you don't win nothing. Maybe a few, maybe 1,000 people who voted Republican said, no, I win something because I'm a friends with so and so, and they're gonna give me a really delicious contract. I'm gonna make $200,000 a year extracting oil, so I do benefit. Okay, maybe that person, but the vast majority, millions and millions and millions of people who voted Republican, have nothing in common with these nepotistic oligarchs at all. Okay, and they shot themselves in the foot. But that's not the point of the video. The point of the video is, I had three friends, three people who are members of my faith, two Babalao and one Oriate, one Olorisha, openly celebrating, happily, very happily, the resignation of Justin Trudeau. And that just weirded me out. We're talking about one Cuban, it almost sounds like a joke, a Cuban, a Dominican, and a Puerto Rican. Okay? A Cuban, a Dominican, a Cuban American, because I don't think he was born in Cuba. A Cuban American, a Dominican, born in the Dominican Republic, and a Puerto Rican who was born in Puerto Rico and still lives in Puerto Rico. Three people who have no horse in the race of the Canadian politics. There's no reason why they should have any, that they should be happy with the situation of Justin Trudeau falling. Justin Trudeau never did anything to them. Justin Trudeau didn't do anything good for them. It didn't do anything negative to them. Justin Trudeau is a complete neutral anomaly for them. It has it's neutral. It's neutral. It has nothing to do with them. Why are these three people taking time of their life to post celebratory comments on Facebook or on WhatsApp about the fall of Justin Trudeau? Why? We're gonna examine them because I think I know why. Because I know these individuals and I know what makes many of them tick. Eh, it bothers me not because it's Justin Trudeau, because Justin Trudeau is just another politician who may agree with me or disagree with me. And my apologies if you guys hear cats and sounds of cats because I have cats that are fighting here, so you'll hear something like that, they'll do that. But anyway, Justin, my concern is more on a base level. It has nothing to do with political calculations. It's an issue of evaluating people's basic character. We seem to live in times when people have lost any sense of being able to ascertain or judge basic character. It's almost like most people never got any training or any education from the parents on how to be decent human beings. Just on a personal level, you were not taught to be a decent human being. Moreover, you were not taught how to examine a person's behavior and go, you are a decent human being, or no, you are an indecent human being. You are wrong. We have lost that really basic capability because I see many people that should have not voted for somebody like Donald Trump who did vote for Trump, not knowing full well that he had done the insurrection on the 6th, knowing full well that he has been adjudicated as a rapist of E. Jean Carroll, knowing full well that all of his companies have been found to be fraudulent, knowing full well that he was found guilty for 31 charges. I'm using the example of Donald Trump because he's very well known in the United States, not because he's the only person. He's just a very present example, a very vivid example of what we should not be as human beings. A cruel, nepotistic oligarch, influence peddling, vengative, narcissistic bully of a person who, on top of all these characteristics, is a rapist, is a violator of women. He considers women basically as sexual objects to be used. He even said it in his audio. I don't have to say it. He said it in the audio. I grabbed him by the pussy. I moved on her like a bitch. We know what he did. We know what he said. We excused it. When I say we, I mean the collective. Because a lot of people in this nation did not excuse it. The 50% who voted Kamala, we didn't excuse it. And vast majority of humanity thinks that Trump is a pig. We didn't excuse anything. He's an abuser of women. He's also an abuser of people from other countries. He's called people from black countries shithole countries. He called Mexicans rapists and thieves. He made fun of people who had disabilities. He started hitting his chest like this. Just an absolutely horrible human being. Absolutely horrible human being. And that's why I use him as an example. But he's not the only one. The point of the video is not to go after Trump. I've done many videos about that. This is about issues of basic morality. Justin Trudeau was arguably, without a doubt, even his political enemies can argue, at least reasonable political enemies can argue, he was a decent man. Justin Trudeau was, and still is, a very decent man. Justin Trudeau inaugurated the most diverse political cabinet in the parliament and in the government of Canada. He allowed people who are historically never allowed to have any position of power or influence to have a position. And all of them were qualified. None of them were like unqualified people. He looked among very qualified candidates, and among the qualified candidates, he specifically searched for people who were Muslims or who were religious minorities or who were women or who were sexual minorities, LGBT people. And he tried to right some wrongs, some historical wrongs in Canadian history. And when it comes to a country's politics, especially countries that have millions and millions of people, you're never going to be able to make everybody happy at the same time. If you do a policy that helps women, there's going to be a whole bunch of masculine men that are going to be angry. If you do a policy that helps LGBT people, you're going to have heterosexual people who think that they're not being paid attention to. If you allow Muslims to have a position of influence, you're going to have Christians who hate Muslims get angry with you. It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to find a perfect politician. It's just the nature of getting together a society of millions of people who think different things, who believe different values, and try to somehow do a government that fits for all of them. It's just the nature of it. But even when it is very difficult for politicians to make everybody happy, we can agree that there's certain people who evidence basic, decent humanity. People that come to mind: Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, who passed away recently, who will be honored in a few days from now, is a person who, when he was governing as a president, wasn't able to govern well for a variety of reasons. There's many historical reasons, but one of the reasons, there was a major oil crisis at the time, and the United States suffered as a result of it. And because gas prices were high and other things, were affected by the gas prices and the cost at the time, a lot of the American people, mostly making the decisions on an economic basis, said, you know what, thanks very much, but I'd rather go with the other guy. I used to pay less on gas when the other party was in power. And he only governed for 4 years. Sin embargo, but beyond that, nevertheless, for the next 40, 50 years of his life, more than that, yeah, 50 years, all the way from 70s all the way to 2024, Jimmy Carter dedicated himself to so many positive, edifying ventures, especially, particularly Habitat for Humanity and other organizations that literally physically create homes for poor people and people who don't have the resources to have their own home. This man, all the way into his hundreds, until the moment he couldn't wake up anymore, until the moment he couldn't get up and walk around on his own behalf, literally all the way until he was 94, 95, or 96 years old, this man and his wife both were such decent human beings, having resources. These were not poor people. These were women, people who could have remained in their homes, enjoying their wealth, and not doing a damn thing. Literally, physically, taking a hammer and nails and building homes for the poor. You simply can't get more decent than that. You can't get more humane than that. I mean, I look at that and I say, I'm not doing enough with my life. I'm not doing enough to help other people. So Jimmy Carter was an example of a person who didn't necessarily had the best political outcomes when he was a leader, but he showed by his leadership during the time of the presidency and beyond the presidency, over 50 years of constant humanitarian behavior, constant goodwill, constant um, showcasing and teaching all of us what it means to be a good human being. I mean, as we say in Puerto Rico in Spanish, Jimmy Carter se ganó su sitio en el cielo. Jimmy Carter won his place in heaven. Oh, hands down, because he was a humane person. So when I see Justin Trudeau, or when I see somebody like Obama, or Biden, President Biden, people may have sentimiento encontrado, who might have differences of opinion on their policies, because some people are angry that Obama put in the promesa thing in Puerto Rico. So everybody got a pet project that they're offended that this particular leader didn't advance, or Biden that he didn't sufficiently help the Palestinians. He didn't sufficiently make sure that Israel didn't use weapons. So therefore, he's a bad guy because of that. Everybody got a pet project for that. But when I look at all these politicians in comparison to what we see in the world, Biden is a decent human being. Obama is a decent human being, continues to be a decent human being. His wife, Michelle, is a decent human being. You don't have to be perfect, but you can generally tell the character of a person through their behavior. They're decent human beings, hands down. And then in the same way, you can tell, regardless of whether you're leftist or you're right winger, whether you believe in communism or you believe in capitalism or socialism or green parties or social democracy. We're talking; those are pequeñeces. Those are small things. Those are details that we iron out and we debate in a different forum. I'm talking about just basic observation. I'll keep coming back to that. The basic observation of human decency. We know when somebody's not decent. We know Fidel Castro wasn't decent. We know that Pinochet in Chile wasn't decent. We know that Saddam Hussein wasn't decent. We know that Gaddafi wasn't decent. We know that President or Prime Minister Netanyahu is not decent. We know that Trump is very indecent. He's not decent. We know that Bolsonaro in Brazil was an indecent person. How do we know these things? Because of what they say, how they behave. They are not people that come in front of the cameras and are talking about collectively uplifting people. Kamala used to say something that would drive me crazy because she would continue saying it again, and it was a little bit trite. It was a little bit played. But she said that the measure of a person, I believe, was not how you is how you lift people up, not what you do to push them down. And it was a little bit on the trite and repetitive nature, but it has a basic maxim of decency behind it. That the measure of a human being is how much you work to lift others up, not what you do. That either pushes other people down or selfishly puts you up and forgets to ignore people out. And when I look at the policies of the Republican Party in this country, none of its policies are worried about improving the well-being of human beings. And most of what everything that they scream about is about pushing other people down. In this case, immigrants. We're gonna kick you out. We don't need you here. Or LGBT people. We're gonna make sure you can't be in here. You can't be recognized. I don't want nobody to read a book from you. You can't play in the sports team. It's always putting other people down. Or if you're not a person who's a Christian, your religion doesn't matter. The true God is Jesus. Only these type of books are going to be here. In fact, even if you don't like it, your kids are going to read about the Ten Commandments. They're going to have to study them in our schools because I'm going to make it so. And that's the mentality. That's the cruel bully mentality that seems to have taken hold in the world right now. And within this context, we have the resignation of Justin Trudeau. Now, I can understand if people, as I did too, I can understand if there's a political leader who I had high hopes that would do something and didn't. Like, for example, Obama. You can have a mixed appreciation of the human being. You can say he did really good here, 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 and here. But boy, when he did Promesa in Puerto Rico, he wasn't really good. Or he talked a good game about helping Afro Americans, but when he was in power, he catered too much to the white people in the United States because he was afraid, as a first black president, that he would be accused of being too black. So therefore, he didn't help the blacks enough, or he didn't concern himself with the needs of people, because beyond being black people, they're just people who needed the resources and attention of the government for their needs too. So he didn't. He ignored them in many ways. In other ways, he didn't. I'm not going to say all he did was bad. That would be unjust for Obama as an appreciation of him. But I can understand if somebody tells me, I'm just not so hot on Obama. He did some good things, but he kind of disappointed me. That's an absolutely valid point of view. Same thing with Biden. I'm really happy that he did the student loan things. I'm happy that he put these people in power. I'm happy that he put a historic number of Afro-American women in legal justice positions. I'm happy that he appointed the justice to the Supreme Court, the first African-American female justice to the Supreme Court. These are all the things I like about him. But man, I'm so angry that he allowed the Israelis to keep killing the Palestinians. That is an absolutely valid point of view. It's okay to disagree, even within political parties. It's okay to be in the same party and say, no, I can't agree with this. And it's okay to also agree with the tenets of another party. Because there is certain subjects that I do agree, probably only one, that I agree with the Republicans on. I can say that's okay. On this, they're wrong. Because I'm also very angry, and that goes to the crux of the issue of today's argument too. I think I know why these three individuals, who I think are kind, decent human beings, two priests of Ifa, one Olorisha, a Dominican, a Cuban American, and a Puerto Rican. I think I know why. I think I know why, because they're friends of mine. We kind of share the same views, generally speaking, but on this, they're more extreme than I am. And it's basically the transsexual issue and the issue of feminism. These particular three men have a really strong issue with the rise of extremist. Look at my words. Listen well. Extremist feminism, what I call misandry, which has enveloped the modern feminist movements in the West a lot. I'm talking about fourth wave feminism or beyond fourth wave. For those that know that there's different waves of feminism and what do they mean. If you don't, look on Wikipedia. Find out what first wave, second wave, third wave, and fourth wave feminism. What do they mean? What was their tangible desires and results, and what were they going after? And I can understand when some men said, we have become too extreme. The pendulum has gone to the other side, and the feminism has become too extreme against man. It's become demasculating and anti-man. I can understand that. That's a valid point of view. I can understand also that 0.5 of the population, 0.5%, very small, of the population, which is transsexual, has been given an undue amount of attention, more than it deserved. And I can understand and be in agreement that things about the transsexual concept or the transgender concept make no sense to us. It's okay to say, I'm sorry, I can respect you as a human being, but no, I'm not. I'm not calling you Mrs. or I'm not calling you Mr. if you're not a Mrs. or a Mr. I consider you by the name you were named in your birth certificate, and I considered you based on the gender that you really are. If you were born with a penis, you're a man, and if you were born with a vagina, you're a woman. Or if you were born with certain genes or certain hormones that are specific to a biological male or a biological female, that's what I'm going to consider you, with all due respect. It's okay, with respect, to have those point of views. It's okay with the respect to say, I'm not I don't think that the issue has been thoroughly scientifically investigated. So it's politically tainted, and unfortunately, because it's politically tainted, nobody wants to say anything about it because they're going to be called a transphobe or a homophobe or something like that. And it goes beyond labels, very petty labels launched like that. It's a simple disagreement about whether or not human beings can just arbitrarily decide that they are the other sex. Because I decided I'm a woman, I'm a dog now, so I'm a dog now. It's okay to disagree about that. That doesn't make you a bad person. So I want to make that very clear for those who may be disagreeing with me on this video. But I think that my friends in particular were very happy that Justin Trudeau lost power, as the same ways as they would be happy if Biden lost power or Obama would lose power, simply because they were not happy with what I believe they would consider the demasculization of men, the accusing of traditional manhood as toxic, as always toxic, as opposed to having a fine line to be able to differentiate between what's really toxic masculinity, violator mentality, a real rape mentality, and differentiate between values that are toxic and values that are stoic. Values that are toxic mentality, toxic masculinity, and values that are traditional stoic male values that are not wrong. It's okay to be a strong man. It's okay to be a man who protects your family. It's okay to be a man that demands certain respect and certain behavior, certain exercise, etc., etc., etc. And it's also okay for a man to cry. It's okay. You can have a point of view that's in the middle of a lot of these views. It's okay to have some kind of feminine behavior in a masculine man. That's totally fine. So I don't blame my friends about it, but I think that Justin Trudeau, Biden, and Obama put a lot of people in power that for some of these friends of mine, these men or these people in power were irritating to them. They were irritated with the extra power or influence or attention that people who were extremist misandric, extremist feminist women, and extremist LGBT activists were given. It bothered them. It bothered them greatly, and it bothered them for years. And I would see the commentary in our joint groups, and I would always be kind of offended because I'm not that extremist in their viewpoint, but I can understand why their irritation had gotten to such levels that they started sharing. I started noticing that they started sharing YouTube podcasts of Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, and other individuals who are just horrible bullies, horrible right-wing bullies, people who are very ignorant, who peddle in ignorance, peddle in racism, peddle in anti-woman feeling, very Andrew Tate mentality against women. So I was stuck in the middle because while I could agree with some of my friends that some of the viewpoints proposed by some of the politicians put in power under Biden, Justin Trudeau, Obama, etc., were extreme, and I wasn't in agreement with them, I was also not in agreement with them all of a sudden going from support of Obama, Biden, and Trudeau to support of Trump, support of Charlie Kirk, support of Candace Owens, support of Ben Shapiro, people who are just absolutely horrible human beings. Like their viewpoints are whether they know it or not, they harm other human beings. It's indecent viewpoints. Viewpoints that peddle in racism, viewpoints that stir up anti-woman feeling, viewpoints that stir up anti-religious, anti-Muslim feelings, Islamophobia. I was in the middle. So I can understand where they're coming from. I understand why they hated Justin Trudeau. I understand why they were happy that Justin Trudeau fell or resigned. I can understand. Understanding means you look at the facts of something and you go, oh, okay, I understand. I understand. But I would propose a friendly critique to my friends and to everybody listening, because this is my way of getting out of my system that frustration. I would propose to my friends that it wasn't worth it. I would propose to my friends that it was not worth the loss of a very decent, kind, good politician like Justin Trudeau, and the good that he had done and that could further do for Canada to strike a blow against the extremist misandric women, or strike a blow against the transsexuals who want to take power against not even take power because they're 0.5% of the population. They can't take power. They can't take power. They're always going to be a minority. They're a biological minority, and they're always going to be a biological minority. They can never, lord over everybody. They're never going to overwhelm the 99.5% of heterosexual biological males and biological females. That's never going to happen. And I would never, and that's the issue. I would never make common cause with Ben Shapiro. I wouldn't make common cause with Charlie Kirk. I wouldn't make common cause with Candace Owen. I wouldn't make common cause with Andrew Tate. I wouldn't make common cause with the right wing, the right wing aspects of the manosphere, because there is a manosphere, a red pill community that has valid points, and I agree with them, a lot of them. I would consider myself a man that reads, studies, and incorporates a lot of red pill content or red pill masculine viewpoints with moderation, because the manosphere is also filled with a lot of toxic right wing, really ridiculous mindsets that belong to Conan the Barbarian movies. You know what I'm saying? Really stupid stuff. And it's very sad to see good friends who I consider who are decent human beings fall into that mindset to such an effect. The propaganda is so powerful that they celebrate the fall of Justin Trudeau. And that goes to the last point of the video. It's something that has been steaming in my head for a while. I think I make it public and video because I think it's affecting a lot of us. So maybe you felt this way too. But it just feels like we're living a time where everything we were taught was wrong is made right. Everything we were taught was indecent is celebrated. Everything that we were taught not to be is what every single political leader taking power in a lot of places is showcasing. You know, when Biden says, and they asked him in a press conference, what was the one value that he wanted to talk about? He said decency. Decency. We don't use that word enough. Decency. Human behavior. Empathy. I would say empathy. I would say compassion. In Spanish, we would say desprendimiento. We would use another word, desprendimiento. To be willing to part with things that we have to help another human being that has a need for it. If I know that I have $1,000 and I can give somebody $5 or $10, because I'll be fine. Next month I'll make my extra 900, 1,000. Give them the $10. Those $10 matter more to that human being than they will matter being in a bank account. Just in case something bad happens one day in my house. For them, it's an immediate need. For me, it's one day maybe I'll buy myself another drum or another bass or another PlayStation, a luxury. For me, it's going to be a luxury payment. For that person, is their life. That is the meaning of compassion. That is the meaning of empathy. Jimmy Carter showed us what it meant to be a person who was empathetic and compassionate. He had all the money in the world. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to get up every day at 94. At 94, do you understand 94? I work with elderly who are 70 who barely can get up. He was 94 and he was hammering away at houses for the poor, putting in nails with his wife, equally old. That's empathy. That's empathy. They didn't have to. They could have spent the rest of their life going, hey, I did enough. I'm 70. I've did enough for my society. Now it's time for me. They could have done that. And they didn't. Justin Trudeau strikes me as a compassionate, decent human being. I might not agree with all his politics. I haven't studied them up enough to agree or disagree. The little bit I know, the little bit I've read from articles, showcase a person that when he got in power, tried his best to steer Canada into an age of compassion and progressive development and inclusion, including people that were historically marginalized. I don't understand why a lot of people have a problem with that. Yes, I'm irritated like all of you guys with the Disney movies where they'll take a white male character and suddenly make him a black lesbian woman. I'm irritated too because I'm like, this is ridiculous. You don't have to take a movie that's a classic or something like that and all of a sudden make it black just so, black people feel special or women feel special or lesbians feel included. But I do feel that there is a need, little by little, to give space to originally created content and stories that include black characters or women or LGBT. That's okay. That's fine with me. So I don't understand why so many people have this irritation with inclusion. I don't want to be, I am irritated with inclusion. I'm going to pass a law that you can't talk about black people. I'm going to pass a law that you can't read books about gays. I'm going to pass a law that says that any curriculum that talks about the historical structures of racism in the United States, no, we can't discuss it in a class. If it doesn't get discussed, it doesn't get included. If it doesn't get included, that's their goal, to exclude, to never include. So I don't understand why people have that issue, unless it's just pure capricious selfishness. No, I want all the resources for myself. I don't want to have to think that I'm a white male and that that my family in some way was involved in this. I still feel guilty. So in order for me not to feel guilty, what I'm going to do is I'm going to force laws, or I'm going to vote for politicians who are going to force laws so that these subjects are not talked about. I don't understand that mentality. What does it matter to you? I'm not against black people having any inclusion. I'm not against Asian historical subjects talking about Asians and their contributions to this nation and how they suffered too. You know, I'm not against Native Americans having their story being told. Why is it a problem for you? Why are we celebrating? I keep asking this. Why are we celebrating Justin Trudeau's resignation? Unless you're a person in Canada that can specifically say, listen, I'm happy that he got lost in power because I lost this, and some kind of a tangible reason beyond ideology. Because the little bit I read about Justin Trudeau seems to me like a kind human being. Furthermore, only kind human beings having all the power in the world, power over our nation, and one of the most wealthy and most well-balanced nations in the world at that, Canada. He took the action that decent human beings take. They cede power. They are able to resign and said, for the good of my country, I resign. Biden did the same thing. For the good of my country, I understand I'm getting too old. I'm gonna give a chance for a young African American, well, young in comparison to him, young African American woman to be able to run for office, to see if we can progress this nation further. And while he was in government, even being an old man, an old white man, he used his power to make sure he lifted up to positions of influence people who were young, qualified, because they were all qualified. All of them graduates from great universities. Qualified officials that were black women or gay or whatever. People who were never given access to positions of power so that they can have access. So that the rest of society can see, look, there's a gay person there, but look how well they're doing. Look, that's a black woman, but look what an incredible job she's doing. What incredibly educated work she's doing. So that people see what's seen becomes the norm. That's what leaders who are kind and decent, compassionate, and empathetic do. They lift others up. They said, I'm going to try to help you get a leg up. And when the time comes that they think that the winds are against them, they resign. They said, for the good of the nation, we resign. They don't stick in there for power. You're going to have to get me out. They're not Trump. They don't get impeached 2 times and still, I want more power, and I want more power, and I want to get in power. And as soon as I get in power, I'm going to punish people. And as soon as I get in power, I'm going to take the Panama Canal. And as soon as I'm in power, I'm going to take Greenland. And as soon as I'm getting in power, I'm going to make Canada the 51st state. They're not Trump. That's indecency. That's your evidence right there, prima facie, in front of you, in front of your eyes. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, that's your evidence right there of indecency. That's why a lot of Republicans left the Republican Party. That's why a lot of Republicans are members of the Lincoln Project. That's why a lot of Republicans, like George Conway, are actively against that. That's why the Cheneys, who were like the most extreme right wing back in the day during the Bush years, are actively against Trump because they see indecency. That's why Arnold Schwarzenegger has made videos against Trump, because they see indecency. Indecency. Justin Trudeau was a decent person. So, mi molestia, my bothered feeling, beyond the issue of Justin Trudeau, that's just one politician, is why are we, if we consider ourselves good human beings, celebrating the rise of cruelty, the rise of savagery, the rise of oligarchy, the rise of authoritarian behavior, the rise of political leaders under these leaders, under the big cruel people, the people under them, that crust of officials that they put in cabinet positions. People who are salivating, who are publicly celebrating, declaring on national television that they can't wait to get in power so that they can all of a sudden round up marginalized people who are very poor, who are very desperate, and cast them out of the country. I'm a U.S. citizen. I've had people who have worked in my house who are immigrants, people who are on parole, people who have their documentation, but they're immigrants. They don't have their papers. They don't have permanent residency. People who have given me better deals. And listen, I know this costs $2,000, but I'll do it for $1,000 or $1,200. Obviously, it's better for me, right? But these are kind human beings. I had workers come into my house to come and cut my trees in my territory. They were Ecuadorians. And I sat them down inside my house because it was very cold outside. They were so decent that they were waiting out in my territory for a good 20, 30 minutes. And I could see them like this, when they were waiting for some materials to arrive. And I told my wife, Sofia, bring them in. Bring them into the house. Don't, have they been out there long? I didn't know. I was getting dressed. And I said, bring them into my house, please. And I sat them here in my living room. And we gave them coffee. And I sat down and I talked to them because I know immigrants are going through a tough time. And I asked them, say, where are you from? Oh, Ecuador, Letrota, and tell me about your life. I made it a point to talk about their issues and their concerns. I brought up the subject about the issue of immigration and Trump and all that stuff. And it was very saddening to me to see good, decent human beings. They just want a chance to live. I have this beautiful home. I have citizenry in this country that allows me to have a job that pays me. I was able to go to universities here and get Pell Grants to be able to study because of my citizenship here. And that's, I'm grateful about it on a human level, but that's for any country. If I was a citizen of France, I would have access to French resources. If I was a citizen of England, I would be having access to English resources. I'm just grateful that life allowed me to be born right into that wealth or access of resources, because I didn't have to do anything else except move here to the United States in 1989 with my parents. And automatically I was enrolled in an American school. I didn't have to struggle. My parents didn't have to fight and struggle for that. They had to fight and struggle to open their careers here, but they didn't have to fight to get me education. They didn't have to fight to get me food. They didn't have to fight to get me health care in the United States, right? And this isn't the most generous nation. It isn't. There's nations with better systems. But I'm lucky. I had everything I needed to grow. I paid attention in school. I got my degree. I got my master's degree up there. And with that master's degree, I applied to jobs with the experience. I've worked already a good 11 years at the job I am right now, where I help other people. I help elderly. I work social work with elderly. I'm very happy with the work I do. I see people who are less fortunate every single day of my life. People who live on $900 a month or $700 a month every single day. That's every single day. I visit all the low-income projects in the city of Springfield every single day. And then I come home to this house where I'm privileged. I'm blessed. My parents taught me to be empathetic, compassionate, and not cruel. Y le doy la gracia. I thank them very much. But looking at the immigrants when they were sitting there, I was very scared for them. A mí me duele esto. This entire process of political change in this country hurts me a lot as a human being. Not because it's going to hurt me. I'm a master's degree person with a high intellect, with a lot of preparation, with a lot of experience, and with a great degree. I'm always going to get a job. I'm always going to be fine here. And if I can't be fine here, I have the resources, the education, the linguistic skills, the degrees for me to be able to move to a whole bunch of countries. And don't think I haven't made my preparations. I have friends in many places and many countries that have told me, if you need to move over here, you can stay with me. So I'm always going to be fine. It's not going to be comfortable, but I'll always be fine. And if things remain good here in this country, I'll be fine here in the United States. I've made really smart investments and smart planning, and I'm a very money conscious person. So I plan for the worst, and I'm always pretty safe in that sense. But there is a lot of people in this country who are not going to be safe. A lot of people that the moment this payaso takes over, this charlatan, this horrible human being takes over, they are going to suffer. People who are scared for their children, people who won't be able to even go to a church because they're writing down their license plates so that they can tell them to the immigration office and come get their kids to school, or get them at the church, or come get them somewhere. People who are going to end up having their lives completely upended. One day they're working and stable and happy, and the next day they're on buses to some camps on the border of the United States, or worse. Or worse. And I worry about people like that. It's very hard. It's very hard to live in an indecent time when you are a decent person. And I consider myself a decent person. Before I was a religious priest, I was a decent person. And now that I am an Ifa priest, I know that Ifa commands us to be decent. El bien que tú le hagas a montones será recibido por uno a montones. o se te dará a ti a montones, o turanico. Haz bien y no mires a quién. Do good and don't care about others' affairs, o turaroso. Do good. O turanico, haz bien a montones. El que hace bien a montones recibe bien a montones. He who does good in much fashion, in large fashion, receives good in much fashion. It's the golden rule. It's the golden damn rule. It exists in every damn religion. And I could continue going on. En my own Odu, Orumila siempre hace algo por las mujeres. Orumila always does something for women. Always helps out women. In my Odu, Orumila helped the women to be saved from abusive men because it was the abusive masculine tribe that went to attack the female tribe. And Orumila helped them even when he didn't have the resources or the objects to help them. He found 16 stones. He performed divination for them and told them what they had to do to save themselves from the impending attack of the masculine tribe, the abusive, aggressive masculine tribe. Even in my own Odu as a Babala, Orumila commands them, wherever you see a woman, you help her. So before I was even a religious priest, I was a good, kind, decent, compassionate person that really was heart struck by the indecency of people. I can't stand cruel, abusive people. But now that I'm an Ifa priest, it is more reinforced. It is obligatory. It is obligatory. Otherwise, I might as well say I'm not an Ifa priest anymore. I am obliged by los juramentos. I'm obliged by my pact, my direct spiritual pacts with Orumila and the Orishas and the Egun, the ancestors, to have to defend decency and compassion and empathy. Which is why it drives me wild, bonkers, why so many Ifa priests, so many Olorish priests, support cruel, oligarchic, nepotistic, thieving ladrones of politicians. I don't understand it. Where is your conception of your obligations? Moral obligations. I don't care. We're not talking about politics. I don't care political difference. I don't care if you like this guy more than this guy. I don't care if you like his dress more than this one. That's not my concern. We all have juramentos. We all have oaths to the orishas, which is superior to what should be terrenal cosas, things that are terrestrial, earthly plane stuff. We have obligations as Ifa priest. Moreover, beyond being Ifa priest, we have obligations as human beings. Where are our obligations to defend, to speak out in favor of decency, compassion, and empathy against forces of evil, forces of politicians and social figures that stand to be cruel to other human beings who are in positions of need and of vulnerability, like immigrants, like LGBT people, like women, like black people, like brown people, like Native American people, Asian people. We have obligations beyond being an Ifa priest, but because we are Ifa priests, moreover. And if we know that just by simple observation that people traffic in evil, that cruel people laugh. They laugh in front of our cameras about what the harm that they're gonna, attack others upon. They tell us into the cameras, this is what I'm gonna do. As soon as I take power, I'm gonna go after fulano tal. I'm gonna go after this, and I'm gonna, attack this person, and I'm gonna weaponize this, and I'm gonna. You can see it in their language. You can see it in their body language. You can see it in their mannerisms. The joy, the morbid joy they get with being cruel to other human beings. The preparation in their mind to be cruel. The actions that they take right now. Donald Trump right now is in Mar-a-Lago holding court, the press likes to call it, as if he was a king. He's not a king. Holding court with a whole bunch of corporate leaders coming in to give him $1 million or $2 million in exchange for what? Influence peddling. They're carving up society. Here's the if you give me $1 million now, I'll make sure that when I'm in power, we'll divide the drilling contracts to your company. I'll make sure that your social media company is the one that gets the contracts for the electric lines or for the internet lines or for the servers or for a contract for the military. Divvying up the resources of the nation. Resources that belong to the regular citizens. Resources that should be decided upon by which company does a better, more efficient job for the lowest cost. Auctions. Meritocracy. The meritocracy that I hear Republicans talking a lot about. And instead, he's influence peddling. No, you give me $1 million here. Hey, you're in with me now. And we all know this. I'm not making this up. We all know this. It's right in our faces. The nepotism, the cruelty, placing people who are completely unqualified. Some guy from Fox News as the military defense general. Matt Gaetz, who likes to rape 70-year-old girls. Robert F. Kennedy, who affected I don't know if it was in Guam or Samoa, affected the health of the people there because they didn't believe in vaccines. So he's going to be the health secretary. A guy who doesn't believe in basic vaccines and basic science. But they are getting their positions of power. Why? Because in the key moment, they all stroked el fundillito. They stroked the fundillito, the butt. They stroked the butt of the narcissistic dictator in wait. The cruelty is the purpose. The cruelty is the point. The savagery and the cruelty is the point. It's about elevating white males, particularly white males, at the expense of everybody else. Because white males, or some white males, just can't stand that other people have a position of influence. Or black males and Latino males couldn't stand that a woman was going to be finally a president. So they joined forces with the white males. We have something in common. We have pee-pee power. We have pee-pee power. We have penis. We have something in common. You got a penis? I got a penis. We're in common now. Let's go after the ones without penis. Or you think that this guy, transgender guy, has got something up in his head? Me too. Let's go make life living hell for them. Cruelty seems to be the point. When I was growing up, I was taught whenever I did something wrong, Rene, no, you don't do that. That's cruel. That's being a bully. If I ever find out that you're a bully, la vas a tener conmigo. My parents were very clear on that. I never bullied anybody. I don't think I ever had it. I was a small kid anyway, so I wasn't going to bully anybody. But I never had it in me. I still don't have it in me. I'm a softie. I'm too much of a softie with animals. That's another thing. People who are cruel to animals. You know who was cruel to animals? Donald Trump. When he was growing up, he used to put petardos, firecrackers, in sapos. He used to kill them. Go ahead, read Mary Trump's book about it. Take some time and read the book. That's the type of human being he was. When he was a child, he killed animals. I don't do that. Why are we celebrating the resignation of Justin Trudeau? Why? What is so important? What are the topics that are so important that he represented for you that it was worth destroying all the other good that he ever did? Or to notice that he's a kind, decent human being and say, yeah, but I'd rather get the indecent guy who's going to do what I want. He's an indecent bastard. He's a thief. But you know what? He'll stick it to the women. Or you know what? He'll stick it to the gays. Or you know what? He'll stick it to the transgendered. We'll be back to traditional male family roles or traditional family values. So that was worth it? It was worth it to you to put in a nepotistic, oligarchic, abusive, aggressive man in power, or whoever's going to be taking power in Canada? What has happened to us that we can't even recognize what basic decency is, and we can't differentiate? We can't look at a person and go, oye, tú como que eres un cabrón. Oye, you're an asshole. You know, buddy, you're an asshole. Like, some of us have that ability to recognize this guy's an asshole. This guy's an horrible human being. This guy represents evil. Some of us have that ability. What has happened that we have lost that capacity? What has happened? This is beyond them. Now it's with us. Now I'm pointing at you. What has happened that we're willing to trade off some perceived benefit? Well, I'm going to get a contract with the Republican Party, or I can't wait for one day to become this, or what has happened that we're willing to trade off our own personal growth, whatever it may be? And for the vast majority of Republicans, there is no personal growth. They don't win a single goddamn thing for voting for this guy. What is so important? That we would celebrate decency and caring and empathy being removed from positions of power and being replaced by indecency Nepotism, oligarchy, authoritarianism, men who are rapists, men who are thieves. No entiendo. We have to we have to do some reflection. It's really, really hard to live through this time. I know that in 10 or 15, 20 years, I'll probably look back on this and we'll look at this like maybe people in the 60s or 70s looked back at the 40s. Wow, the Nazis. Jesus, that was a horrible time. We'll look back on it. And people like Donald Trump will be long gone and they'll be condemned in the history books as the assholes, evil people they were. But what I want to know is why my kind friends, my friends who are decent human beings, are celebrating the fall of Justin Trudeau. Why? What is wrong with you? And that, lo doy. Have a good day, guys. Be decent and kind to other people and to yourselves.